This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who were our first teachers and storytellers. I extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Habit Nerd podcast. I'm Dr. Bree Hearn, and if you're interested in habits, those tiny, powerful behaviours that shape who we are and what we achieve, you've absolutely landed in the right place. Join me each week as I interview a wide range of experts, dive into evidence-based strategies, and give you practical tools to help you build habits that stick and break the ones that hold you back. Hi there, Habit Nerds, and welcome to today's episode of the Habit Nerd podcast. I'm so excited to welcome our international guest all the way from the US, and she's spending the time with us at the very end of the day over in the US and the early morning here in Australia. So I'm really grateful. Her name is Dana K. White. Now, Dana is a best-selling author, a speaker, a podcaster, and the creator of the widely loved blog, A Slob Comes Clean. She's best known for her relatable and reality-based approach to decluttering and home management, which is built on her own journey of transforming an overwhelmed home into a functional one. Dana is the author of several influential books, including the Wall Street Journal bestseller called Decluttering at the Speed of Life, as well as How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind and Organizing for the Rest of Us. Through her podcast, her YouTube channel, workshops, and her signature no mess decluttering method, Dana teaches practical strategies that resonate deeply with people who don't naturally think in organizer brain ways. Her work has helped hundreds of thousands of overwhelmed home managers make real and lasting progress, one doable step at the time. Now, I love Dana's content. She's so generous and so warm and funny in what she shares. I have read How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, and I know that my audience will absolutely see the reason that we've got Dana on the podcast today. So thank you for being here, Dana, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, let's jump in. Dana, what habit in your own home life has had the highest return on investment for your mental clarity?
Doing the dishes. If you've read How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, I did a count at one point. I think I said, do the dishes. And there's probably other variations of that phrase, like 52 times in that book, because that was the transformational habit for me. When my house was completely out of control, I had tried to do what I thought people were telling me to do. And I was so desperate at the moment when I started an anonymous secret blog about getting my house under control that was supposed to be temporary. I wasn't teaching anything. I just thought I was going to write about it as I did it. I decided, I just looked around at my house and I said, okay, I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. I know that the people whose houses are under control, if you ring their doorbell unexpectedly, which I try not to do, right? But if you do that, they don't have kitchens that looked like my kitchen always did, which is they had kitchens that looked perfectly fine. And I was like, I don't know how they do this. Are they washing their dishes constantly all day? Like, what is going on? And I said, I'm just going to do the dishes. I'm just going to try to keep them done. Because I also knew that every time I tried to get my house picked up, clean my house, I had to start in the kitchen, and I spent hours in there.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I could keep the dishes done, maybe I could actually move on to the rest of the house, which I was never able to do. So I started doing the dishes every day, learned that one day's worth of dishes is so much less than I thought it was, because I had always done the math and thought, well, after 5 days, it takes 5 hours. That must mean it takes an hour every day. Who is spending an hour every day doing their dishes? Like, I thought, what is wrong with them? Like, I don't have an hour to spend time, doing that. So, but then I realized if I do them every day and it's only one day's worth of dishes, it takes like 10 or 15 minutes. And that just, it strangely opened up so much time in my day to do that consistently. And the reason that has stayed the most important thing is that dishes need to be done, right? Like, they stop the function of the house if the dishes aren't done. I can't cook. I can't do anything else. And I always have a nagging feeling when I'm doing anything else that I really should do my dishes, right? So just having those be done freed me. And it also gives me always a place to start. Anytime I'm overwhelmed, I know what to do. I start with the dishes.
Oh, I love it. I
That was a
love
big, long speech. I'm sorry, but go.
you know what? It is, my goodness, the resonance in so many things that you just said. I did laugh this morning. I was looking through your Instagram and you have got a t-shirt that says "Do your dishes" that I feel like I feel like you could almost put in an Etsy shop of your own. The thing is, I would always be an advocate, and this comes up over and over in this podcast of like, just start, just do one small thing. But what you've done there is articulate what the small thing is. And I think that's kind of the step that's often missing. Like, sure, do one thing, but I still don't know what that one thing is. Whereas you really treated that as almost a gateway habit, because as you say, if that's all you get done, then your kitchen is clean and that's a great feeling. And if it does lead to other areas of decluttering or cleaning around the house, then that's probably because you've got that little bit of feedback and a little bit of a dopamine hit, and your self-esteem's really kind of getting some support there. So yeah, I love that you say it gave you a sense of freedom. Yeah, so thank you. So if we are talking about one thing, then Dana, if someone could only change one action, what single habit creates a domino effect in a chaotic home?
Well, there's the dishes, obviously.
Apart from the dishes. Yeah, that's a great one.
The other one that I say, these are the, if you will do the dishes and this one other habit, it will both get your home on the path to being under control. And they're also the two things to do to keep your house under control. So the second one is the 5 minute pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And there is shocking power in a 5 minute pickup. Like it's amazing what can be done in 5 minutes, but not even necessarily like as a rush around for 5 minutes,
Mm.
but just 5 minutes of focus on my house and picking things up and putting them away. And the beauty of the 5 minute pickup is that the first day is only 5 minutes. The first day of the dishes might be 5 hours because I'm catching up. The
Yes.
first day of the 5 minute pickup is literally just 5 minutes of picking stuff up and putting it away. But every day continues to build. And it also gives you something to work toward when you're decluttering, because the goal is to get to the point where you have few enough things that on a regular day, a 5 minute pickup with the whole family participating is enough to get the house back under control. So it's just a shockingly magic, even though it's not magic because you're doing the work, habit that really impacts everything.
I love it. And it sounds so easy. Like anybody can do 5 minutes, like 5 times 60 seconds. That would, anyone who's feeling, where do I start? I'm so overwhelmed, it's too hard. Anybody can do 5 minutes. And I think I love that. You've reminded me, Parkinson's law, like a task will take as long as the time allotted to do it. And
Interesting. Yeah.
so I feel like if you have to set a timer, or if you're quite comfortable to look at the clock and then know what 5 minutes is on from there, you will, knowing that that's all you're going to give it, you will give it, as you say, so much more focus and intentionality to be able to kind of smash through that than you would if you had 1 hour and you thought, oh, I better tidy up the house. And it just felt like this kind of big generalized task.
That's a great point. Yeah. There's I can do 5 minutes. And the reason I chose 5 minutes was that it was literally the shortest amount of time I could justify. Because
Mm.
I had tried the 10 minutes, I had tried the 15. I'd said 30 minutes. I'm going to spend 30 minutes working on my house, because looking around my house, I thought, well, surely that's what I'm going to need to do every single day is 30 minutes. But I was always overwhelmed by those numbers. But 5 minutes, I legitimately set a timer, and I have permission to stop at the end of 5 minutes. I'm not tricking myself into going longer.
Mm.
I'm done and I feel accomplished at that point.
Yeah, I really like that for two reasons, more than two reasons, but two that come to mind. There's the 2 minute rule, which I'm sure you've heard of. And I always think that's kind of gaslighting yourself, because 2 minutes is not really enough to do much. And 2 minutes, you can tell yourself it's 2 minutes, but it will become longer. Whereas five is there's more integrity there because you're able to say, I am actually going to stop after 5 minutes. So let's see what I can get done in 5 minutes, and almost like a motivational challenge for yourself that's very achievable, isn't it?
It is. And I like that you brought that up because that's actually something for me. I know that's really important. And for other women who are bringing their families into this habit, everybody doing the 5 minute pickup together, is I don't like being tricked. I
Mm,
don't, even by myself. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm doing this in order to get myself to do this plus this plus this plus this, right?
Yeah, it's not kind, is it? It's not
Yeah,
kind.
my personality, and I honestly think most people don't like to be tricked into doing
Yeah.
something. And so, like you said, 5 minutes is legitimate, and knowing that I can trust that is really important. And when I brought my kids in on this habit, I had to prove to them that I really did mean 5 minutes. Like, I wasn't just saying,
Yeah.
let's do a 5 minute pickup. And they're thinking, especially in the beginning when my house was out of control, they're thinking, oh, here we go. She says 5 minutes, but it's probably going to be all day long, but once they trusted
Mm.
that it really was 5 minutes, then everybody really buckled down and focused. And five people doing 5 minutes is actually 25 minutes worth of work in your house.
Right. So you get everybody involved.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
I love it. I might try that. And maybe I'll put some music on and make it a little bit of a pleasurable exercise. I think that the kids trusting you is a really big piece there too, because, we are as parents a little bit good at saying, oh, we'll see, and actually they know exactly we won't see, that won't be happening. Or, so to say 5 minutes and mean 20 minutes, then you're going to lose all your credibility for next time. So, I
Exactly.
reminded me during the COVID lockdowns and, being here in Melbourne, we were locked down for a long, long time. I would deliberately have work meetings that would stop, Zoom meetings 10 minutes before the next one. And I used to set myself little 5 minute challenges of what I could kind of get done before the next meeting. And because I knew I had to be somewhere, that container was really helpful. So yeah, you've reminded me of just the power of that. So yeah, thank you. Which household habit, Dana, looks the smallest but is actually identity changing?
But I don't like to make things up. And so I hate to just go back to my same two.
No?
But I do feel like it's important to understand how much just these two habits will change things.
Yeah, so let's talk about the identity angle then of the
Right.
dishes and the 5 minute pickup.
Okay. So let's say for the dishes, I had always had a kitchen that was out of control because I was always justifying or over logicalizing. I would look at a pile of dishes in the sink and I would think, I don't have time, or that's not enough to be worth my time. Well, but the next
Yes.
time I noticed it, it was more than I had time for. Right? So then I put it off until I had the time. And then it was more
Mhm.
and it was overwhelming. And so I was always running out of dishes. Because I was running out of dishes, I always thought I needed more dishes. And so I would find some on sale. Somebody would be giving some away, and I'd always bring more in.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
the problem, as I'm sure you can see, but I didn't see at the time, was that the more dishes I had, the longer I could go without doing the dishes, the more overwhelming they were. And it just was this really bad cycle.
Yes.
By doing the dishes every day, I learned to trust that I had enough dishes.
Mm,
And that feeling that I never had enough dishes because I was always running out went away. And I was then able to declutter dishes, which then made it so much easier to keep the dishes under control, which was very different from what I had always assumed it would be. So it was that building trust that I had enough, but it ultimately came from me doing the maintaining.
yeah.
That really coming to the point where I trusted that I could be the person who would always have clean dishes ready to go was a huge identity changer for me.
Yeah, I am the type of person who has a sink without dishes in it, is a complete game changer than, you know, um, and also I would imagine that you gained some trust in yourself and in that piece of your identity and how important that was. And so that was kind of motivating to keep going. Yeah,
It was
these
also
are,
very motivating to know if I did them more often, I was never going to have an overwhelming amount to do because those overwhelming times are the times where you have a lot of negative self talk
yeah,
about why do I let it get like this? What is wrong with me? Why is this so hard for me when it doesn't seem to be hard for everybody else?
yeah.
And when it was an actual habit, which I always say, it's not the kind of habit where I go, "Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize I did the dishes." It's not that kind of habit.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's a pre-made decision that I've decided to do this every day, and I don't rationalize it and think it through every day. I just do it. So, but by doing that, then I'm motivated to do it because I know I'm not going to have to do the big recovery.
And you remember how awful that
Right.
felt, what impact
Yes.
that had. Yeah. You reminded me of another concept that, would be really core to your work. Is it true, Dana, that to have less things, so if we're talking about dishes, for example, or in the 5 minute pickup, to have less things, but more quality things. So, say if we're talking about dishes, you have enough for your family to eat, including maybe your extended family, or enough so that you have friends over that everybody can eat and they can have plates and bowls and cups and cutlery. Do you find, yes, that's easier to manage, but also you care for things with more intention?
Yes, absolutely. It's easier to manage. I think it's a natural caring for things with more intention because things are not at the bottom of piles, which is often
Mhm.
where things get damaged and where bad things happen. If there's only enough dishes that they fit into the dishwasher or the sink to hand wash easily, and there's just not as much moving around and chance for things to be damaged. Sometimes when you have a huge pile and you're like, just got to deal with this pile, that's when you start to get that frantic carelessness of just tossing or
Nothing
throwing
feels
whatever. Yeah. But if you're like, I'm going to deal with this pile of dishes and it's 5 plates and 5 forks, then it's, I don't need to have that franticness.
like. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Let's talk about the container concept. It's gone
Okay.
viral because it's so practical. At its core, it's a container-based habit. It's constraint. It's constraint-based, isn't it? How do constraints help people succeed where freedom often fails?
So, well, you mentioned earlier, you said, talking about dishes and just having what you need and think through just the enough for your family and maybe for the extended family who's going to be there. Those are the things that make my brain spin out because I have a very creative brain. And so I'm going to think through if I let myself say, what is the math here that I need to figure out, which is kind of funny. We're talking about math and creative, but I actually think math brains are
Yeah,
very creative.
yes. Please.
But that if I'm doing that math, then I feel the need to come up with every scenario of every situation that I could ever be in. Well, you know what? We have this many. You know what? There was that one time where my husband's family and my family were all here at the same time.
Mhm.
You know what? There was that year that we also invited that family that we met at the last minute to Thanksgiving dinner, which, I shouldn't say Thanksgiving because that's an American thing. You know,
We know about Thanksgiving
okay. The holidays, whatever. But my brain spins out. And so
because
it's,
you're planning for every scenario and that becomes
yes,
overwhelming. Right.
right. Because I can't think of every scenario.
No, you can't.
But
And somebody could drop by and someone could bring a friend and
yes, right. But if I let the container make that decision for me, then I don't have to think of all of that. So instead of doing the math, I say, what is the space where I would look for my plates? This is the space that I have for my plates. Okay, I'm going to put my favorite plates in there first, which I know which ones are my favorite now because of doing the dishes every day. I was choosing the same ones over and over and over.
mm,
Before, I never knew what my favorite plates were because I would use every single plate before I got around to going back through them.
and it wasn't a matter of favorite, it was a matter of what was available because everything
Right,
else was.
exactly. And it was so long in between that I didn't register which ones were the favorites.
Mm,
But when I use the space, that cabinet where I would look for plates as the limit to how many plates I can have, then something happens in my brain. And I'm like, okay, well, that's how many plates I can have. And it just so happens that it's plenty and we've never run out, even though I would say we probably have 1/10 of the plates that we used to have.
wow. Does it work as well in wardrobes, like with
Absolutely.
clothing?
Yeah. The deal with the container concept is that space is finite. Who knew, right? For a creative brain, we just don't see limits, which is a wonderful quality. But also at the same time, that was the reason my house is out of control. It never crossed my mind that I needed to get rid of stuff because I didn't have enough space. I just thought, well, I'll have to come up with some sort of space solution someday, except that I had so much stuff that was never going to even be possible. So if I look at my closet rod or my drawer where I keep my sweaters, if I look at those spaces and I view them as containers, like they serve as a boundary, the same way firefighters create a boundary around a fire, they contain the fire in order to keep the fire inside those boundaries. And then if the fire goes outside the boundaries, bad things happen, right? So I realized a container is meant to contain. So therefore, this closet rod is the limit. That means that I put my favorite things on that closet rod first, and that naturally sorts out what's most important to me. Mm. Because by the time it's full, I already know these things that I haven't put on there yet are not as beloved or needed or useful as those. I don't have to look at every single item and say, is this a good dress? Mm-hmm.
Because if it was good, you would have hung it up.
Right. When I was asking myself, is this a good dress? Then my brain spun out. Well, it's not really my favorite, but you never know. What if this happened? What if that happened?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Whereas the container kept a really stringent but functional boundary around it for you. Yeah, yes. That's wonderful. Have you seen people misuse the container concept?
I feel like once somebody understands it completely changes everything, which, in the beginning, when I was writing this stuff on a blog back in, 2009, 2010, as I was figuring it out, I wasn't teaching. I was just saying, hey, oh my goodness, I had this realization. If I had been doing that privately and not writing about it anonymously, but writing about it, I think I probably never would have taught the container concept because I would have thought this is embarrassingly obvious. Like now I get the thing that everybody else gets that I didn't get. But because I was writing about it, the people who were reading it said, what? I didn't realize that either. This changes everything. So generally when people understand the container concept, they get it. The one thing that people do, I would say mess up, although it's always going to be better, right? But the one thing that people sometimes struggle with in the beginning is understanding that the container also has to include room for function, which means it's not a matter of shoving things in. So that shelf where I keep my plates, I can't just cram as many plates as I possibly can fit into that space in there. I need to be able to easily reach my hand in and get what I need and easily put back once they're clean again. That function has to be included in the space. And so it's not a matter of how much can I get into this space? It's how much will this space functionally hold?
Right. What can I get out comfortably? Mm-hmm. What's going to maintain the quality of the things in there so that they're not, as we say, squashed in or bunched up, mm-hmm. or I need to be able to see everything. Yeah, I understand. It's funny, so much of this is related to self-efficacy and self-esteem, isn't it? So even the fact that you wrote, the name of the blog, A Slob Comes Clean, and then the fact that you wrote anonymously and the fact that you had all of these kind of shame-based stories around, why can't I do this? And everybody else seems to be able to manage it, and sort of being in the dark, and just the power of, often we hear that you write the book that you need to read. And I feel like that has just been an enormous gift that you've given people, and so functional and helpful. Like that firefighter analogy is just so simple, but so powerful, isn't it?
It changed literally everything for me in my home because I started to see that every space in my home is a container. Every space is a defined boundary. And I stopped fighting against reality. I started embracing just the reality of my space. And when I did that, it all became so much easier.
Right. And then would you say that because everything became easier and I can almost feel myself taking a deep breath, I've had this experience where I've done a big clean out of my linen closet, for example, when I realized that I just don't need as many sets of sheets and quilt covers that I have. I feel like my mental health overall improves and I'm better as a person because I've solved something that I didn't really even know was heavy for me. Does that resonate?
I think, I'm always a little, I always want to hesitate a little bit, right? Because a lot of times somebody who's naturally organized is like, oh, I couldn't function in that situation, right? And the problem for a lot of those of us who struggle and like had really, really, really bad clutter issues is that we could function in it until all of a sudden we couldn't. Right. And so we were out there doing things and we were managing things and we're generally very competent people, which is a part of the identity issue, right? Is we're like, I'm competent in other things. Why can't I seem to do this?
Yeah.
But at the same time, my house was holding me back. I wanted to be a writer. And the reason I started an anonymous blog where I called myself a slob that I never meant for anybody to know was me, but here we are. But the reason I did that was I was so desperate to start writing, but I thought I've got to get my house figured out first because my house was such a frustration to me. And yes, getting my house under control gave me the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do. Absolutely. But at the same time, the reason I say that is I think sometimes people say, hey, you need to get your house under control so you'll be able to get things done. And they're like, well, I am already getting a lot done and I'm completely overwhelmed. So the idea of being able to get more done is not necessarily the thing that's making me want to work on my house. And at the same time, they already know they want to work on their house. Like they don't need to be convinced. I didn't need anybody to tell me, Dana, you know what? You should really get your house under control. I'm like, yeah, thanks for telling me something I already knew. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going into it. I'm so protective of who I was back then. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. And you're really honoring that version of yourself. And I would imagine that's the gift of you working with so many people that you've gotten to know. Yeah. And I really appreciate being kind of pulled up on that, that it's, it almost takes a breaking point for some people to make a change. And that breaking point can carry a lot of pain and a lot of things that they already knew, but it just was too big a problem alongside so many other things.
Well, and so many times what I found was that I had tried so many times to change, but all the advice that I saw didn't acknowledge my actual starting point.
Dana, you frame habits as non negotiables. What makes a task worthy of being a non negotiable?
Well, I consider these to be function pivotal tasks. Function pivotal, meaning if I don't do these tasks, bad things happen.
Like,
Things
oh,
grind to a halt in my house if I don't do these. This is
right.
the reason that I don't say that it's a non negotiable to make your bed.
Okay.
Making your bed is great. It makes a big difference, psychologically, it really does have an impact, right?
Mm,
Except that I know from experience that at the end of the day, when my bed is not made, I can still just crawl into bed and go to sleep.
mm,
And so when I was told that making your bed has to be the first thing, I was like, okay, but does it really have to? And so that was questionable to me, right? But doing the dishes, if I don't do the dishes, things grind to a halt. It
okay.
is by definition harder for me to make dinner. It's harder for me to fill the pitcher that I used to give my dogs their water. It's harder for me to open the front door when people come over because I'm embarrassed over the kitchen. So like the kitchen is function pivotal. Everything grinds to a halt if I don't do the dishes. If I don't do a 5-minute pickup, then the clutter creeps and gets worse and worse and worse the longer I don't do 5-minute pickups. I have the type of brain where I randomly set things down. Like I wish I was the type who put everything back immediately. That's such a great idea, except that I never ever think to do that. And so I have to do the 5-minute pickup as a way to keep my house under control anyway. Like it's 5 minutes of focus. And so if I'm not doing those, then things get out of control. And so the ones that truly, as a non-negotiable, as a habit themselves, move me forward. Those are the ones that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So my second last question, Dana. When a home feels overwhelming, how do you help people start building habits while they're still drowning in stuff?
We'll start with the dishes, but also grab a trash bag or recycling bin, whatever you already have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And just go to your front door, your most visible space, and start looking for trash or recycling. Only that. And if you are convinced that there's no trash there, go and look anyway, because what happens is when you go look for something very specific that is decision free, if you're going to find it, I'm not talking about things you're deciding to throw away. I'm talking about things that obviously need to go into the trash or recycling. If you go and you look for those things, you're going from thinking of it as, oh, there's a big mess, to actually knowing what are the items that are in that mess. Your brain is starting to adjust to what it is that you're actually going to have to deal with. Then you're able to get moving. And it's decision free, it's emotional energy free, and it's a way to start at the lowest point of entry.
And it's almost got a container around it by its nature, doesn't it? Because it's just rubbish.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
fantastic. All right, Dana, this has been so helpful today. Where can we learn more about your amazing work? Where can my listeners connect with you?
Well, you can, anytime you want to find me, just search for Dana K. White, because there's a man named Dana White who is not me.
Not
That
you.
you're going to find if you just put in Dana White. So put in Dana K. White. And wherever you look for books, or you can go to my website, aslobcomesclean.com, and that will take you to all of my places. I'm on YouTube and a podcast and all of the places on the internet.
I can't wait for my audience to do that if they're not already. They're going to gain so much entertainment, but also practicality. And, congratulations on all of your work and all of your publishing, Dana. I can't believe it's taken me this long to find you, but now I know that I'm deeply, embedded in your work, and I look forward to following along. So thank you for the very generous interview that you've given today, as I say, at the very end of your day over there in the US. And yeah, thank you a million times on behalf of my audience as well.
Well, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here for another episode of the Habit Nerd Podcast. I am so grateful for your time. If you enjoyed it or gained a fresh perspective, please share it with a friend, or maybe you feel like giving it a 5-star review, which will take you less than 30 seconds. I do love all of my habit nerds, and I see you showing up every day as your wonderful selves. So until next time, take care.